Hello everyone, my name is Ian Fanning. I'm Algonquin, and I have many years of experience in employment counseling and job search strategy coaching, and I'm here to offer some job search strategy workshops. The topic of this workshop is resume preparation. We'll look at some resume basics, a few types of resumes, and some examples. So let's start with some basics. Like you, your resume is unique. You need to think of your resume as your fingerprint. Though the following workshop has lots of tips and lots of suggestions, you need to pick the resume that's right for you, and it's very, very important that you like your own resume. Whatever you do, don't leave creativity out of your resume. It's okay to use a border or a splash of color, whatever gets your personality across to the interviewer that might be sitting across from you. It's important. Balance some creativity with some professionalism in your resume. A word about templates. The internet is loaded full of resume templates. It's okay to use a template. Find one that works for you. At the same time, as an Indigenous person, I'm a little uncomfortable with someone developing a template that I have to squeeze myself into. For some of you, developing your resume from scratch is the best approach. So what does a resume look like? Your resume should be 1 to 2 pages, no more. Should be very, very easy to read, nicely laid out, lots of white space between different segments, and it should be very easy to navigate. Very, very clear titles, work experience, education. Every resume that you submit should have a cover letter with it, and that'll come in a different workshop. Cover letter goes on top of the resume and should be the first thing that the employer sees. Whatever you do, do not submit a resume without a cover letter. This shows to the employer that you're not invested in the process and that maybe you don't know the ins and outs of job search. Make sure every resume that you submit is prefaced with a cover letter. Don't stretch the truth on your resume. That will backfire at some point and could cost you a job later down the road. Be truthful and be authentic. Try to make sure that your resume is completely error-free. Make sure you proofread. Get your family and friends to proofread your resume. An employer may let you away with a mistake or two, but many employers, if they detect one error on your resume or cover letter, will discard it immediately. Keep in mind that a resume is a living, working document. It needs to change just like you do. So from day to day, update your resume, change it over and over again, and make sure that you enjoy your own resume and that it's a true reflection of yourself. So what does a typical resume look like? In the beginning, you want some introductory information right near the top. This is your name, your address, your phone number, all the contact information the employer needs to get a hold of you. You might want to have an objective at the very start of your resume. Many people use an objective, for example, I am seeking an entry-level social worker position with a focus on Indigenous youth. That's one example of an objective. Other people leave the objective out and include it on their cover letter. That's fine. Below the objective, you're going to want to have a summary of qualifications. This should be 6 to 8 very, very clear points of your greatest attributes, your achievements, your greatest strengths. Below your summary of qualifications, you're going to list your work experience and your educational achievements. It's really up to each job seeker which one to list first. If you're light on work experience, you may want to list your education first, and vice versa. Seasoned and experienced workers will often want to list their work experience first because it highlights their cumulative experience. New graduates who don't have a lot of work experience may want to list their educational achievements first. It shows the employer that you're a new grad, you have cutting edge knowledge, and that you're ready to work. So there are several types of resumes, and as a job seeker, it's up to you to select which one really works for you. So we'll look at about 5 different types. The first is a chronological resume. Second is functional resume. Third is combination resume. The fourth is a targeted resume. And then we'll give some examples of non-traditional resumes that you might like to consider as you apply for jobs. So the chronological resume, let's take a look. The main purpose of this type of resume is to showcase your accomplishments and employment history as an accumulation of your skills and experience. You want your experiences to appear cumulative. So you'll list the dates of each job that you had and the educational achievements that you've completed, a certificate, a diploma, or a degree. You should list the start date and end date, and a start date and end date of any work experience, educational experience, or any position that you're currently in, or any educational program that you're currently enrolled in. So let's take a look at the functional resume. Generally, it focuses on skills and achievements rather than the length of service in employment. This type of resume is often used by new graduates who are very light on experience and need to really highlight their education and need to avoid listing dates on their resume. This may also be suitable for job seekers who've been out of the workforce for some reason and are trying to re-enter and don't want to highlight those gaps in employment that they have. This type of resume is also very, very good for people who have jumped from job to job and don't have a continuous employer for many, many years. So let's look now at the combination resume. Some folks call these hybrid resumes. These combine elements of a chronological and functional approach. These are good for those in the middle of their careers who wish to highlight their accumulated experience but also want to highlight their accomplishments as well. So in this type of resume, you'll have key accomplishments for different areas. So for example, you may have management and then some of your key accomplishments in the management area. Then you'll have administration and some key accomplishments under the administration area. These are often used by executives and managers who wish to showcase their experience as they work through their careers or as they attempt to gain promotions. So the next type of resume we'll look at is called the targeted resume. And in my opinion, the most proactive job seekers will always use a targeted resume. In this type of resume, you target your resume and your cover letter to a specific job description. So you have the job description in front of you, you alter your resume and your cover letter to speak specifically to the points in the job description. In this way, you're targeting specific parts of the job to show the employer that you have those skills. In other words, you need to alter your resume and cover letter every time you apply to a new job. This is very labor intensive, but it often yields the desired result. So let's look now at some non-traditional resumes. There are various types of non-traditional resumes. You don't see them often, but they can be useful. The first is an infographic resume, which are visual representations or presentations of your work. This could be artwork, it could be charts, graphs, a portfolio of photos that you've taken. There are also video resumes where you record a short video about yourself and your skills and present that to the employer. There are also online resumes that usually take the form of a website or a blog where you're selling yourself to an employer. You know, just ask your potential employer if they're open to receiving a non-traditional resume. For Indigenous students, these types of resumes are very valuable and very powerful. So if your employer is open to receiving a non-traditional resume, let the creativity flow and produce a quality piece. So now we'll move on to some general resume tips. The first category is references. Be very, very proactive about your references. On many, many resumes, you'll see references available upon request. That's perfectly fine, but to be proactive, you could actually have your references available on a separate sheet to hand to the employer during your interview or even when you're submitting your resume. It saves the employer a step. They don't have to chase you later for your references and wait a day or two for you to respond. Most employers will be looking for 3 references. 2 will be work-related references and 1 likely a personal reference. Make sure that you stay in touch with your references, that they know what jobs you're applying for, and make sure that your references will speak positively about you and about your character. I've often run into distraught job seekers who don't get a job because their reference did not speak well of them. Make sure your references are on your side and have your back and will speak well. Another resume tip, I often see unnecessary information on resumes. So people often list their hobbies or recreational activities on their resume. Leave that out of your resume. That's not necessary. If you're hired for the job, the employer has all kinds of time to get to know you. They don't require that information on your resume. Use all the space you have to convince the employer to hire you. And some final resume tips, don't forget the additional information. So many people leave out valuable information on their resume that demonstrates skills and accomplishments. So make sure you talk about or list your volunteer experience, your certifications, and other additional training that you have. So try and think of any other training. This might be WMIS training, it might be chainsaw training, it might be a babysitting course, it might be forklift training, all kinds of examples. Don't leave that out. You can have a section in your resume listed additional relevant training and list all of those certifications under there and make sure they're kept up to date Those additional certifications really show the employer that you have additional skills that are transferable to multiple jobs. But make sure that you only list the training that's relevant to the particular job that you're applying. So for example, for a social worker position, you're not going to list forklift training. You're going to maybe list the babysitting course or the WMIS training. And if you have volunteered, make sure you put that on your resume. Volunteering not only shows the employer that you're willing to donate your time back to your community, but it also shows that you've gained valuable skills and experiences that are outside the workplace and outside schooling, that you've broadened your horizons and that you're willing to share those experiences with the employer. So I hope you enjoyed this workshop on resume preparation. There are a few questions that follow the video. Please answer them as they cover the material that we looked at, and good luck preparing your resume.